In the vast reaches of space, where galaxies twisted like ribbons and stars burned with furious intensity, the Eucor Empire loomed like a storm cloud. Their warships were a terror, their weapons capable of turning entire planets into nothing more than ash and dust. The Eucor had traveled to Earth with one goal in mind: conquest. The humans in their minds were weak, primitive, and easy to crush under their iron heel. They would take the Earth without any effort, just like they had done to countless other worlds. But something had happened that none of the Eucor had predicted, something that would shake their entire understanding of the universe. It wasn't the strong humans they had to worry about. It was the weak ones. The attack began on a cold, quiet morning. The Eucor ships descended like vultures, their massive forms blotting out the sun. They unleashed their weapons on major cities across the globe. Destruction reigned. Buildings crumbled, and the air was thick with dust and smoke. The Eucor thought the humans would cower in fear, begging for mercy. But instead, a strange thing happened. A group of humans, not soldiers but ordinary people, rose up. These were the so-called weak ones, those who weren't trained in combat, those who didn't carry weapons or wear armor. They were doctors, teachers, engineers, children, and the elderly. Yet, when faced with the destruction of their world, they did something that defied logic. A young woman named Sarah, a teacher from a small town, watched as a Eucor ship hovered above her home. It fired down on the streets, causing chaos. But Sarah didn't run. She didn't hide. She found a radio, and despite the fear bubbling in her chest, she began to broadcast a message. To anyone who can hear me, we need to help each other. We can't fight them with weapons, but we can fight with our courage. We can rescue the wounded. We can save those who are still trapped. Sarah's voice echoed across the airwaves, heard by millions. The call for help reached the ears of ordinary citizens, people who had never imagined they would be heroes. But now they had no choice. A few miles away, an elderly man named James, his hands shaking from age, heard the message. He knew that he was too old to fight in battle, but he also knew that his decades of experience with search and rescue operations would help save lives. He grabbed his tools, some rope, and a flashlight, then made his way to the ruins of a nearby building. In another city, Maria, a mother of 3 young children, grabbed her kids and ran towards the nearest hospital. She wasn't a fighter, but she knew that hospitals were where the injured would need care. With a fierce determination, she gathered a group of other mothers and began helping the doctors tend to the wounded. She worked tirelessly, never thinking about her own safety, only about the people who needed help. As these so-called weak humans banded together, something remarkable occurred. They weren't soldiers. They had something far more powerful than weapons: the will to protect, to survive, and to help each other. They organized makeshift rescue operations. They cleared rubble, provided first aid, and guided the injured to safety. They did all of this without expecting anything in return, simply because it was the right thing to do. Meanwhile, the Eucor, observing from their ships, were growing frustrated. They couldn't understand why these weak humans weren't crumbling in fear. They had expected chaos and surrender, but instead, they'd found resistance. Strong, unyielding resistance. The Eucor commanders issued orders to crush the human resistance with even more force, but they didn't understand what they were truly facing. The leader of the Eucor invasion, Commander Vrax, stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the humans' unexpected efforts. He had seen countless species fall to his empire, but he had never encountered one like this. These humans had no advanced technology, no weapons to match his fleet, and yet, they fought back with a strength that seemed to come from within. It was as though they were powered by something far beyond mere physical might. Commander Vrax ordered another wave of bombardments, targeting the cities where the humans were organizing. The humans would be destroyed, he thought. It was inevitable. But then, a strange thing happened. As the Eucor ships fired their weapons, they didn't expect what happened next. The weak humans, who had no weapons to defend themselves, had something else. They had a network of communication, an invisible web that connected them across the planet. It was through this web that they had organized their counterattack. The humans had done something even more unexpected. They had built their own weapons, not of fire and destruction, but of technology that could disrupt the U-Corps' advanced systems. The small, seemingly insignificant human inventions, radios, satellites, and even smartphones, had been repurposed into tools for resistance. The U-Corps had underestimated their enemy, thinking that the humans would be easily subdued by force. The U-Corps found their systems failing. Ships began to malfunction, communication lines were severed, and their weapons didn't fire as expected. The humans had hacked into their systems, using technology that was centuries behind the U-Corps' own, yet they had turned it into something more powerful than the invaders could have imagined. Sarah, James, Maria, and countless others continued to fight back with what they had: tools, determination, and courage. They weren't soldiers, but they were something even more powerful. They were humans, and they refused to give up. The U-Corps, shocked and disoriented, tried to regain control, but it was too late. The weak humans had turned the tide. One by one, the U-Corps ships began to retreat, leaving Earth behind. Where the dust finally settled, the humans stood victorious, not because they had the strongest weapons, but because they had the strongest will. They had proven to the universe that even the weakest among them could rise to the occasion and defend their home. The U-Corps learned a valuable lesson that day. Never underestimate the strength of those you consider weak. The humans, in their simplest form, had shown that true strength lies not in power or weapons, but in the heart and spirit of those who refuse to back down.